and welcome to Through the Doorway, where I'm already losing my mind. Because this is actually take 2 of this episode, because Streamlabs, thank you so much for destroying my audio. Anyway, today, I am joined by my wife, Dana.
Hi.
And over here, we have...
Loki, hi, how you doing?
And Courtney, what's up?
Courtney is Loki's wife. They actually helped us do research.
Mm-hmm.
And today we are on the topic of omens of death.
Yes.
So, what is an omen of death, per se? What do you think?
So death omens are really it's kind of like a superstitious that a lot of different cultures have. A lot of them, they believe that if something specific happens, it's a sign that either something really horrible is going to happen to either them or a friend or family member, or that, instead of something horrible, it could be that, somebody, them or another family member could die. But pretty much all death omens, it's like a specific set of circumstances that have to be met for them to believe that the omen is fulfilling itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I'm pretty sure you guys have told me before that you are big believers in omens of death? Or death omens?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So like a brief thing before we even get onto the actual topics. What type of death omen have you heard of before? You know, like a localized omen of death, or
The Grimm from Harry Potter
Yeah.
and the Grim Reaper.
Okay.
My religion, tea leaves and reading tea leaves, that's an actual thing that people do for
Okay.
divination. Yeah. So
Okay.
there's also there's tarot cards. Also could be an omen of death, depending.
Gotcha.
So that's true, because people that do tarot, they're really superstitious about getting that death card.
Right. Yeah. Which it really doesn't mean that, but it could. It all depends on the spread of cards. But yeah.
Now, my question, can fortune telling be considered a death omen?
I mean, technically, yes.
Well, if you think about it, some of the stuff we're going to be talking about kind of predicts somebody's going to die, if you think about it.
Well, Courtney has a point, because when it comes to fortune telling, there's a couple of different ways that they do it. You've got palmistry, where they read the lines of your hands, and they could be reading your lifeline, and they could be like, oh, your lifeline is really short. And that would signify that you could not have a full life. When it comes to the crystal ball, it could be that if the fortune teller is legit, that she's foreseeing your death in the crystal ball, and from there could tell you how it's going to happen and roughly what age you are, whether you're going to be like old or whether you're going to be young or middle-aged. And then of course there's the tarot cards, which, like Loki said, pulling the death card doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna die, but it depends what kind of tarot reading they're doing and what cards come up before that, because you could pull a card signifying you or a family member, and then pull one signifying that there's going to be some kind of illness or accident, and then if you pull the death in addition to that, it's basically saying that this illness or accident is going to lead to whoever's death.
Okay.
So I can definitely see how it would be a valid point for fortune telling to be a death omen. It's possible.
Okay. Now, I'm kind of changing the format up a little bit this time around due to the fact that we've already recorded this episode once.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking things different this time around to mix it up a little bit. So instead of just focusing directly on our notes and the stories and stuff, we're going to get more into discussion about it and bring some of it up. Okay, so this is going to be a little, we'll say it's kind of off the cuff a little bit. All right, this time around. So this is going to be a little bit of a different episode this time. You guys cool with that? Okay, because I honestly, it's like, I already read through all this once. We've all read through it once, and it's like, do we really want to fully do it again?
It's happening again. You guys are
Cutting out.
We're cutting out again?
yes.
Yeah.
All right, that's Discord
Okay.
at this point. It's Discord. I don't
Yeah,
know why we'd be cutting out.
It's fine now. I don't know.
I
It
don't
must be-
know. Anyway, like, I know, for instance, we were originally going to talk about the Grimm.
Uh-huh.
We were going to talk about the Faery Washing Lady, or woman, or whatever you want to call it. We were going to talk about the Hag of Dribble, and we were going to talk about the Banshee. Now, we're going to touch on them. Alright, which means we will look at these notes in a little bit. But, I'm the host of the show, and frankly, I want to mix it up a little bit. Let's make it a little more fun. Okay? So, let's talk about, let's see, what type of death omen do I know of? Oh yeah, there's a strange death omen I know of where people can see something in breaking open an egg. Have you
Never
ever
heard
of
that.
that one?
No.
No.
Depending on how the egg breaks, it can tell your fortune, apparently.
Huh.
Yeah. Kind of like how palm reading can tell you how your life's gonna go and stuff, stuff like that.
Yeah, it seems like a variation of that leaves reading.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have stuff like that, and I know you got a lot of people that think, that stuff ain't real and stuff like that, and, then you also have other types of death omens, ones we didn't touch on. For instance, like, dreams that come true. You get what I'm saying? Like how I've had the dreams of, or random people that I've known have popped into my head when I was dreaming. And then I suddenly wonder why I'm thinking about them, just to find out the next day that they passed away.
Yeah.
That's a little chilling.
Happens to me a lot. Don't know why, but it does. So a lot of people think there can be death omens in dreams. And of course, like I've said before, death omens can, not that, death omens may not be evil. They may be good, you don't know, because death is a part of life.
Right.
That's true.
A lot of people believe it's the next stage. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think?
Well, I think, yeah, death definitely is the next stage. Kind of interesting to see what it is. If it's like a place where you go and there's other people there, or is it just your reality that you can make up? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
It's okay, just relax. Remember, this isn't scripted this time.
So,
we're just going for it the way we want to right now.
To piggyback off of Loki there, there's a lot of people who believe that once you die, you go to the afterlife, whether that's heaven or hell or purgatory or whatever. Some people believe that once you die, if you go to heaven, it's just like, basically it's like a giant world where you get to be reunited with everybody you love and family members of yours that have passed on before you. Other people believe that when you die, basically you get your own personal heaven made, and so it's like something that's really sentimental to you, and it's like your own personal place. And it could be you reliving a really good memory you have with like somebody you loved,
Mm.
and basically you're just like living out your ideal life with them. um I guess it is possible for you to pull other people, like if a husband and a wife passed away and their ideal heaven was the exact same thing, I'm sure that basically that heaven would get combined for them to share.
Mm.
Some people do believe that. Other people just believe that once you die, you're either reincarnated or that your soul ceases to exist.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Uh, my uncle, all right, his belief is when you die, everybody temporarily goes to purgatory. And when you go to purgatory, it's the living that keep praying for your soul to get into heaven that you will eventually get in. That's what he believes. Now, like
That is interesting.
I don't know why people think this is like the greatest kept secret of mine or something. I don't hide it, but I am an ordained minister. All right? But I'm not your typical ordained minister due to the fact that I don't really follow organized religion too much. I believe, something is there, and I think sometimes the belief is better than going to a so-called house of God when I consider the whole world the house of God. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And see,
Uh,
that's kind of like what I believe. Like my family is not really. Well, I mean, my father apparently is Catholic, but when I was little, I used to go to a Baptist Sunday school that my great aunt ran. I didn't classify myself as Baptist though, and when I would stay at my friend's house, if it was a Saturday night, I would go to church with her the next morning, and her family went to a Lutheran church. Her father was the church caretaker and all that kind of stuff, so they were
mm,
super religious. And then of course, like your family, most of them are Roman Catholic.
yes.
So I mean, they're super religious, and the
Yes, we're,
thing is
we're
though,
the we're the Coca-Cola with all the sugar and calories. Yes.
but
I
something I've noticed though is that even though your family, a lot of them believe, a lot of them also don't go to church every
Well, let me
Sunday.
tell you a little
And
story.
the
Let
thing
me
of it
let me tell you a
is,
little story about that. All right. Uh, we used to go.
I know why you don't go.
No, we used to go. Uh, to a church. Every Sunday. I went to Sunday school, of course. I was younger. But what was weird, what happened is we ended up with a new priest. All right. And the same day the new priest came into the church, they immediately wanted everybody there to put up money to help him get a new house because even though they just brought him in, he wasn't happy with the size of the house he had.
Damn.
All right. This is why I do not follow organized religion. All right. Because, oh, he's not happy with the house he has, so let's, make everyone else pay for it. Instead of doing a fundraiser or something like that to help raise money for it. Oh, no. Let's just, put all the money in here and buy him a bigger house. Where honestly, if you are, a servant of God, you should be happy with whatever you get.
Absolutely, I agree.
Have you noticed with me, I have never, yes, some places have drove me nuts, right? But I was still grateful I had a place. Have you ever noticed I don't really care about my possessions? Because they're just things.
yeah.
They can be replaced. You
Yeah.
see, there's the difference. Now, I'm not saying all organized religion is bad. I'm just saying you have some bad eggs like that. You know what I mean?
And what
when we saw that, that was the last day we stepped foot in that church. We stopped going.
the thing too,
I don't
though,
blame you at all.
the thing too though is when you collect money from your congregation, that money is supposed to be for the church that they attend.
Yeah.
For maintenance, upkeep. Maybe you guys want to do some kind of holiday event. Maybe you want to have a cookout, or you want to have some kind of holiday party for the congregation.
Yeah, you need to
And
sit closer to
that's
the mic.
where the money would
Yeah,
go.
Dana, you're cutting out on it again.
But that's where the money would go. Like you would pay for like the ingredients for you guys to make the food, or you know, maybe you want to put together goodie baskets for the kids that are going to attend,
Right.
or if it's the holiday, maybe you have some local families in the neighborhood that have hard times and you want to put together like Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner or some Christmas toys for their children.
But
That is what that money should go towards.
But think
not
about this.
towards
I
his
actually
house.
belong to a club. I'm not going to say what it is because I'm not going to get political with stuff and stuff like that. But I belong to a club that for years around Christmas time and Thanksgiving, we would fundraise money, right? So we could buy turkeys and stuff and hams and drop them off at these churches for them to give out to people every year.
Last year, the club spent like $900 on hams and turkeys to give out to
Yes.
local families that couldn't afford.
Now, due to the way the economy's working now and all, this year we're probably just going to give them checks so they can figure it out for themselves, you know, but we do stuff like that, okay? But, you know, I'm not saying there's bad things. I mean, I've been to other churches that have been really good.
Yeah.
You know. And my journey on becoming a ordained minister was not an easy one. I mean, you know, there were a lot of dark times in my life. You know, I walked on the darker side. I didn't do things like drugs or anything. You know, but I did walk on the darker side of life, questioning a lot of things. You know, I saw how things worked from both sides because honestly, I think the best way to deal with stuff is to either have lived it, you know, because you don't know a situation until you've walked a mile in someone's shoes.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
So some stuff I purposely experienced so I could understand it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why I can relate to so many people. It's because they know I understand.
And it's the fact, like, nobody has to believe the same stuff everybody else believes.
No.
I'm not religious. I don't subscribe to any religion. I believe in karma, that what goes around comes around, and you should treat people the way you want them to treat you. And I believe that there is a higher power. I'm just not going to give that higher power a name, because there's no proof that there isn't one higher power, and that all these different cultures just worship that power under different names and different religions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so until you can definitively prove that, oh, this being such as God or Allah or Buddha or whoever actually exists, then, you know, I'm going to believe what I'm going to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that the thing is that as long as you have something that you have faith in, technically you have a religion. And you don't have to get along with everybody else's religion.
No.
The fact is, all these people who believe that there's a God, you shouldn't need a church in order to worship God. Because they say that God, you know, is the father of everybody, even though he was born from humans himself. If anything, believe in Gaia. Because they say that Gaia created the earth, and this is her body that we're living in.
Actually, how it worked is, God actually existed before that, but
yeah,
his here's
I'm
the
thinking
thing:
of his son.
different religions that are kind of the same believe different things. Some believe that Jesus was the Son of God.
Mm-hmm.
Other people believe Jesus was God. In other words, Jesus was the vessel of God. They are one and the same.
Yeah, but either way though, it all comes down to the fact though that churches like that, they did not exist way back when Jesus or God or whatever you believed in walked this earth. So you shouldn't shouldn't need to specifically go to somewhere that you label the house of God just to worship him.
But
you should be able to worship whatever you believe in wherever you
yes,
are.
I know. But the reason we were going down the rabbit hole with this is because it relates to a lot of what we were going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of this stuff, you could see it as part of religions and stuff like that. Because, you got the Celtic stuff, and then it just falls together, and a lot of it has to do with death, and there were a lot of death omens actually in the Bible, if you think about it, but we're not going to get into that.
True.
That'd be
That's
a whole.
nother can of worms that
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm just trying to give.
That'd be a whole other podcast.
I'm just trying to give, a little bit of background on why I look into this stuff, why I question things. It's not wrong to question things. It's not even wrong to question things in your own religion at times. Because you got people, let me explain. You got people that believe the Bible is word. All right? And then I see things that just don't make sense to me. David versus Goliath. A giant? Giants have never existed. So what I look at it as, and I know it may sound mean or bad, I see the Bible as stories that are supposed to teach you a valuable lesson in life to try to better yourself.
So let me ask you this, Tom. Do you believe in any of the stories from the Bible?
I can't prove any of it didn't happen. Now, like David versus Goliath, maybe it was just a tall man.
Could be.
Right.
And they just referred to him as a giant. You see, I find things
like the one dude, Andre the Giant.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying, though, is
tall.
the way it's worded, and then I try to think of the logical stuff with it. Right? I'm probably going to be the realest reverend minister you're ever going to meet, because I try to put logic to stuff without trying to hurt people's feelings with it, because I'm not saying the Bible isn't the word. I'm just saying the way it's worded, I try to break it down into where it's a more realistic sounding thing.
Right, yeah.
I got you.
Like
and I wasn't trying to offend you by asking.
You're not going to offend me.
Just...
It's very hard to offend me. Trust me.
And on the flip side, I am practicing pagan since I was 16, so a long time. So on that flip side, where I have a different perspective on things,
right?
Per se.
But as you see, we get along.
And
yeah.
If I'm not super I'm not super knowledgeable about paganism, but most of that is about basically believing in like nature, isn't it? Or am I thinking of Wiccan?
Wiccan and pagan have a lot in common.
They overlap a lot.
Yeah, they do. They overlap a lot.
A lot of them are about like
a lot of it does have to do with
living
nature
in harmony
and the
with
elements and stuff
and all
like
that kind of
yes.
stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of it does. Because even I understand a lot of pagan and Wiccan. Like I said, I have questions, so I go solving and looking for answers. You see what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
And it just happens that some of the questions and answers that I'm seeking put me on this path. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right,
yeah. We get you.
It's more about the knowledge than anything, But at the same time, I try to use it to help. At the same time.
Right.
So... and I know a lot of people don't like talking about death, and omens and stuff like that, but it's something that should be explored.
Absolutely, because the only concepts in life that happen to everybody are life and death.
But I mean, you're not going to get answers like this by seeing somebody that's acting like they're holier than thou and then they're a hypocrite.
Right, and sadly there are too many people like that.
There are tons of them like that. You know, because I've had people come up to me, right?
Yeah.
I don't go to church, you know, but doesn't mean I don't believe in something, right? And I've had people have discussions with me and said, wow, you really understand God more than most people. Now, how is that?
I don't think anybody truly understands God.
I don't
I,
either, but the fact is, if somebody says that I have a better understanding than most people, what's it tell you? Perhaps maybe something I'm doing is on the right track of figuring things out. You know?
true.
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying what other people have said. Trust me, I have no ego. Because what I'm doing is not selfish. It's me just trying to help. I don't
Right.
Yeah.
honestly care if any of my questions get answered, but I'm going to go down this journey anyway to see where I can go.
Right. Just to see where it leads to.
Exactly. I've always walked the roads less traveled by other people, and I've never strayed away and turned around. I walk everything to its end. That's how I am.
Right.
How
As you should.
You know? So, for instance, like one topic for Death Omen, the Grimm. When you first hear Grimm, right, a lot of you thought Harry Potter, stuff like that. That was the first time I've ever heard of the Grimm, you know?
Right.
Other
Yeah.
than that, I've heard Grim Reaper, you know, the Grim fairy tales, stuff like that. You know, I've never actually heard of what a Grim is. You know, and I mean,
Or you have the concept of grim possibilities.
exactly. You know, so it's fun to go down the rabbit hole every so often because it's funny what you find, and sometimes you learn more about your own culture. Like for instance,
Right.
I'm Irish. You know, Irish. I knew about the Banshee. I didn't know much about it, but I knew what it was.
Right.
You know, so it just makes you wonder, you know, because sometimes you hear something and you don't think much about it until you actually research it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and in this case, the Grimm, like, I'll take a little look at this, all right?
Okay.
Because I'm trying to make this go a little easier for everybody this time.
Yeah.
You know, so nobody's stressed out. We're just talking. Who knows? People might even like this format better. You know?
Right.
Where we're just talking, you know? But, like, most people wonder what an omen of death is. Pretty much what an omen of death is it's something that usually brings about the demise of a person. When it comes to a Grimm, I don't know if the Grimm was the same thing in Harry Potter as what's here, but it's known mostly as like a jet black dog type creature.
Yeah, that's seen in Harry Potter.
That is
Yeah.
how it is. You see,
Yeah.
I don't
Basically.
remember. I've seen Harry Potter. I didn't understand all of it.
Yeah, he's seen as a big
Dana can
black
tell
dog,
you.
possibly a wolf.
We might have to sit and watch it again.
Me and Dana had a whole discussion one night because I was thinking in my head one day about Voldemort and realized, you know, this whole thing could have been avoided if he wasn't paranoid. The whole thing of Harry Potter wouldn't have happened if he wasn't paranoid. Swear to God. I had a whole
True.
discussion with her and she even agreed with me.
That's actually true.
It's his fault that everything happened in that movie. If he would have left the Potters alone, nobody would have done anything to him.
Yeah, he would still be in power.
You know? I mean, people are probably going to try to poke holes in it. That's fine. I mean, by all means. I love, you know, discussions on stuff like
he
that.
wouldn't have been left alone if he left the Potters alone.
But what I'm saying is, he probably wouldn't have died.
He wouldn't have died, or it would have taken longer for him to die.
I mean, it could also have been fate playing a deal.
When it
too.
comes to the Grimm in Harry Potter, the Grimm starts making an appearance in the third movie or book, Prisoner of Azkaban, and he takes divination. Harry does, and so one of the things Trelawney has them do is drink the tea and read the tea leaves, and then she makes a big deal about how he's got the Grimm in his cup in the leaves, which means that he's gonna die, and I mean. She's a crackpot, even though she does make 2 actual prophecies in
Professor
the movie.
Trelawney.
Yeah. But you know, the fact is that they say that the Grimm is like a big, and Sirius has his animagus form was supposedly the Grimm. He was a big black dog that looked like it was a mix between like an actual dog and a wolf. And I think it was the slightly wolf-like features, I think, is why they classified
So it looked
and
like
interpreted.
it looked like a dire wolf, in other words, a big,
Yeah,
really
Yeah.
big.
kinda.
Okay. See, now I'm understanding.
Not like the wolves in Twilight, not quite so big, but you know, probably about half their size. He was
Okay.
bigger than you would normally see a dog.
Yeah, about like I said, a dire
About
wolf.
the size of a wolf.
Yeah, dire wolf.
You know, and I think that's where they got the interpretation that his form was basically the Grimm.
Mhm.
And you know, that's where he came up in there. But it was basically, it was said that, you know, if you saw the Grimm, you were gonna die. And then you've also got a couple of others. A lot of the research we've seen, I mean, we've got other research that says that some people, when they die, they would have like these black dogs that would be around where they passed away. There's no proof whether that was a Grimm, whether it was a hellhound. There's a lot of figures that have black dogs associated with them
This is true.
in addition. So, I mean, it's more stuff for us to eventually look into.
Oh yeah, of course. You know.
And going back to Harry Potter, a lot of that stuff was actually in England and Ireland, and that's basically where the myth kind of came from.
Right.
So that's kind of where it bled over to the story, because they've been hearing that for centuries now.
Yeah.
So
Okay. But I mean, you know, I mean, as people can see, we've taken bunches of notes. They helped with the notes, but I'm not gonna get too in depth this time around, just because that takes a lot of time. I mean, there's some keynotes we might touch on. I mean, we're gonna go after what's like really interesting in this case. Okay, guys?
right, okay.
So,
All right. So
Fair enough.
anything that seems interesting in the notes that you want to mention, go for it. All right.
Well, let's give a description. So the hair is supposed to be jet black.
Right.
It's a dog. It has unnaturally large eyes with glowing red, or unnaturally large. My bad. Unnaturally large with glowing red or yellow eyes. So there's a difference between the eyes. It's usually connected to the devil, and sometimes it's associated with electrical storms, crossroads, barrows, which is a kind of fairy hound, and places of execution and ancient pathways.
Okay. Oh.
and apparently it originated from England, like English folklore, and it was seen throughout Europe and the Americas. But considering most of the settlers in America came from England, it would make sense on why it would migrate its way over here.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Right.
Right.
Because I mean, you hear stories of people seeing like
Yeah.
a big black dog outside their window or something, and the next day somebody like disappeared or something. You know, it's interesting. You know, I don't know what's going on there, but you never know.
They claim that it could be considered a guardian of the underworld. It's known in like the Welsh, the Norse, the Greek, like I guess like ancient times, way back when. It's littered throughout their history in those cultures, you know. And the Norse, I don't really like. You have what's his name, Fenrir. Anybody that has seen the third Thor movie knows that they had Fenrir. He could have also been considered a type of Grimm. He was just a lot larger than I guess you would normally see them. The Greeks, of course, had the Cerberus, which could be considered a type of Grimm. It's just got 3 heads.
Yeah,
Which
they,
you see that in Harry Potter too. You know, first movie.
Yeah, yep. It's supposed to be the guardian of the underworld as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Anybody that's played what is it, Devil May Cry 3? They fight Cerberus at one point in that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forget it. I think he might be in another one too. I can't remember. You know.
I would be. Oh, I think he's in a Final Fantasy game as well. I'm
I
pretty
know there's a
sure.
Final Fantasy VII: The Rage of Cerberus at one point. I don't know if he's in that one, but there was one named with Cerberus in it.
And,
Yeah.
in 1677, I'm gonna assume that this was in like the England area.
Okay.
There was apparently a huntsman who sold his soul to the devil, and when he died, black hounds were said to have appeared around his burial chamber, and the ghost of the huntsman is said to ride with the black dogs. And this tale is actually what inspired the Hound of the Baskervilles. So you've also seen where they inspire a lot of the more gothic type literature.
Right.
And
Okay.
anything back then that was like a horror, mystery, thriller type thing would have been labeled as a gothic category.
Well, yeah, I get that. You know, so I mean, it's interesting to find out because I can guarantee there's a lot of people that don't know what a Grimm is other than from Harry Potter. You know, but that's all they would know. They would know the name.
Or the Grim Reaper.
And not really know what it is. You know?
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Grimm's part of a lot of things, you know? Sometimes I even think some people say the Grim Reaper takes form of a dog. Sometimes.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
might be how he got the name. I don't know. But I mean, you know, you find interesting stuff out like that. Like, how many people would know that it's in all that, you know, origin story, you know, of this and that, and it inspired, you know, a story, you know?
Yeah. Which I need to read Hound of the Baskervilles. I don't think I've read that in a long time.
We'll see if we can find a copy at that used bookstore at Marley.
It's a good idea. It's where I actually get a lot of my books.
Oh, yeah.
But like, kind of as a side note too, for the Grimm, is it's kind of well known that both dogs and cats can predict not only illnesses in their owners, but sometimes know when their owners are going to die.
That's true, actually.
Well, they have a better sense of like smell and hearing than humans do, and they, from being around their owners, they're so used to their body language and their energy output that when that changes, they pick up on it really easily.
It's a lot like with Luna, for instance. Luna spends a lot of time in the office with me. And I think she can tell that I'm physically handicapped. You know? So I think that's why she's around me and she's more comfortable around me because she can tell that I'm not really going to do anything towards her.
Right.
So I guess she feels kind of safer with me.
Poor cat.
So.
He's an emotional support animal.
Basically, yeah.
Well, kinda. You gotta think, when she was working, I was here by myself 24/7.
Yeah.
And she's gonna be going back to work soon.
But I know even with Chloe, if one of us was feeling sick or sad or whatever, she would cuddle up in your lap or, you know, be around you quite a bit.
Yeah. She knew.
Now, my dog, on the other hand, not that bright. Yeah, remember, I got her. She got up on the bed. She was 40-pound terrier pit bull at the time. All right, 40 pounds, year old. I just got out of the hospital from my second back surgery. All right, and they had staples in my back. All right, you can tell I'm looking for something under the bed. You can tell it hurts me doing that. The dog got the bright idea. Ooh, I'm gonna jump down on his back. So
Oh.
40-pound dog lands on those staples. So yeah, my dog, not that bright.
I'll be right back.
Alright, that's fine. Oh. I mean, you think of a lot of stuff. I mean, it's just like people have that superstition about if a black cat walks in your way, you know what I mean? It's bad luck. Walking
Right.
under a ladder, opening an umbrella inside, you know,
Right.
shattering a mirror. You see what I'm saying? There's a bunch of stuff that has some type of omen to them. Not all of them are death omens, but a lot of them have bad things to them. But there's also omens that have good things. See, you think people hear the word omen, they immediately think of something bad. But there are
I did for the longest time.
There are good omens as well, because there's research that we did here where some of these, I guess you will call them beings or supernatural things, have an opposite and equal part to them, you know? So, you know, when you really do the deep dive into all this, it can really be surprising because you didn't know that there was something opposite but equal, you know?
Which it always gets me that so many people are surprised that things have opposites. Because when you really get down to it, it's like the concept of good versus evil. You can't have one without the other, and it's the same thing like yin and yang represent good and evil, and then you've got light and dark.
There's got to be a balance.
You can't have one without the other. None of it. Like, you have to have the opposite.
And I'm not gonna lie, from my perspective, if everything was pure and good, life would probably be very boring.
Boring?
Very boring. You get what I'm saying? Because nothing happens, really. I mean, yeah, everybody's happy and all, and that's great, you know, but I have a feeling people wouldn't appreciate it as much.
People would go insane, because it's like insanity is the act of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
I feel bad things happen to challenge us, to prove that we can overcome obstacles, and it makes us better for it when the bad thing happens and we overcome it. You know, we can take pride in it, going, we went through hell, right? But we're still here. We still made it. You know, we did this. We overcame it. You see what I'm saying? It gives you some pride. And there's, you know, it's like in the Bible and stuff, you know, there's like the 7 deadly sins, right? Pride's one of them. But the thing is, pride can be good at the same time. Sometimes you need little doses of pride. Now, too much pride is a bad thing.
Right.
But a healthy dose of it, like being proud of yourself because you achieved something, that's fine. You know, that's great. You know?
But having too much pride can be a dangerous thing.
And I've seen it happen.
You get too much pride, and then it turns from pride to arrogance.
Yes, it does. You know? And it's just like, you know, back in my younger years, where a lot of people would, you know, come up to me and stuff, right? And wonder how I did stuff. And they'd look at me, right? And they would say, well, you're a badass. That's what they would say, right? I look at them and go, no, I'm not a badass. I'm just a normal guy that got tired of the way things were going. That's where I was different, because everyone that's ever said, oh, I'm a badass, right? Gets arrogant, and they end up in bad places. Where I've always told somebody, no, I am not a badass. You know? I've never been arrogant. I can act it at times for, you know, comedic purposes. I'll do it just to be funny. But I'm not
That would
arrogant.
be a smart ass, Tom.
I can be a smart ass, yes,
Yeah.
but it's for fun. I'm only playing. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So when I do stuff like that, I'm only playing around, and most people can catch that I'm only playing.
Right.
But I've never been arrogant, or cocky, as a lot of people would say. I can act it at times, just to be funny though. Uh, what else is there? I don't really take myself too serious. I mean, think about it. I take life serious. I mean, you've seen me serious before, but then think about it.
Absolutely.
I listen to parody music half the time because I want to laugh.
Absolutely.
That's
And
all I
everybody
ever actually want to do. That's all I really ever want to do is get a good laugh. I have to be serious a lot in everyday life for stuff that when I relax, all I want is a good laugh. That's it. That's why I listen to some of the dumbest things, and you've heard some of them,
Oh, yes, I have.
but they're funny. I get a kick out of it. It relaxes me.
Right.
Because at the same time, you can't take life too serious.
No, you can't. It would be downright depressing if you did.
Exactly.
You have to find the balance.
And that's why, even though we do talk about darker and creepier elements, you gotta take it in stride, because,
Right.
Yeah, it might be dark to you, but to someone else, it might not really be that dark. They might actually see the good that's within it. Just like
Right.
I've said before, the Grim Reaper is not good or bad. It's a force of life, because death is part of life. It's the next stage. Nobody truly knows what happens when you die. And honestly, I hope nobody ever does figure it out, because it's the greatest mystery that keeps people curious. And when people are curious, they're willing to learn a lot more things.
Yeah.
I think that's healthy, actually.
It is.
Because, I mean, what do you do if you figure out the answers to life? What happens if you figure it out? What happens? The adventure's
thing is,
over.
I believe there's so many answers to life
Exactly.
that it can still remain a mystery.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. Is we can still answer stuff without actually answering stuff, if you get what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I think life is pretty much your own interpretation.
Yeah.
It's what you think it's going to be. It's how you want it to play out. That's your
Right.
life. You're in charge of it.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. If you find out the secrets of death, then life is going to be that much meaningless.
Exactly. So yeah, I do deep dives into stuff like this because I'm curious. I want to learn more. It doesn't mean I'm trying to uncover the secrets of life and death. It's, I'm just curious. What is, parts of it? I'm just curious what it consists of.
Right.
Not what the meaning of it is. Because sometimes when you learn the meaning, it actually takes the meaning away.
Some things have to remain a mystery.
Exactly. It's just like I wouldn't want to live forever. Do you have any clue how boring it would get?
Yeah.
Living forever?
It sounds good in theory, but the longer that you watch the people that you care for, like, live their lives and then die and leave you alone, just to basically repeat that process, eventually that will drive you crazy.
Exactly. And here's one thing to think about, which a lot of people don't, is your parents, right? As you're growing up, you're watching them grow up too.
Yeah.
Right.
You watch them grow up as you grow up. And then your kids watch you grow up.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's an endless cycle. But that's one way to look at life, is everybody's always growing. nobody's ever done growing, even once you die, you know? If there's the next step after death, if there is life after death, you're still growing. You know? Might be a different plane. Might be a different universe. Who knows? You know, there's a lot of people that believe that there's multiple universes that align with ours that we all exist in, but we do different things. So say, for instance, like right now, we're doing this podcast, right? There's a universe where we're not doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a universe where, you know, I'm not injured. There's a universe, you know, where I'm already gone. There's a universe where I never existed. You see what I'm saying? There's a theory on that. And I would think that'd be kind of neat in a way.
Uh-huh.
You know, just to know the fact that, hey, you know, stuff that I didn't do in this universe, another version of me did in another universe.
Right, yeah.
You know, but I mean, I'm not going to get too much into that because, I mean, that'd still be cool. I mean, there may be different planes of existence. You know? There could be reincarnation. I don't know.
This is true.
You know, and honestly, if there is reincarnation, and unfortunately with reincarnation, usually you forget everything about your past. If I had an option to come back as somebody else or stay who I am and stay dead, I'd probably stay dead. And do you know why? My life and my experiences made me who I am.
Yeah.
My scars made me who I am. Why would I want to forget that? Why would I ever want to forget what I went through? Even good or bad, at this point I have cherished it both because I have learned lessons from both. Do you see what I'm saying?
It's very true.
Why would I want to reset that and forget all that? If I were to ever come back, I would love to be able to come back and remember who I was before. That way, maybe my next time around, I can be even greater than I was before. Do even better than I did before. Do you see what I'm saying?
That could be a possibility.
You know, it's just things to think about.
Tom, I think we lost Dana.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't lose her.
Oh, okay. Looked like she was asleep.
Well, we can touch on another thing now if you'd like. All right. Because honestly, I think we talked enough about the Grimm. Now this one, I believe, is known as the Faery Washing Woman.
Mm-hmm.
Or Bean-Nye.
Yeah, or Bean-Nye in Scottish Gaelic. All right. And what it is with her, what happens with her is she's from our podcast about the Headless Ghosts, about the Scottish Headless Horseman. Ewan, where we originally talked about him, like, the night prior, before his death. He had spotted her washing bloody clothes at a lake, I believe it was? River. And he went over and asked if one of the piece of clothing was his. And she said yes. And apparently how it works with her is the bloody clothes she is washing is those of people who are going to die.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is possible to prevent your death, apparently. And it is kind of interesting, and at the same time, it gets a little strange. So, for instance, in the story for Ewan, the way his death can be prevented is she says that his wife must serve him butter with his breakfast the next day without being prompted. Now, I don't understand if that's just what she does or if she comes up with something for everybody that's different. But unfortunately, it was not to be for him, and he knew he was going to die that day. So, from what I get, let me take a look here, just so I can find something. She is considered a Banshee.
Mm-hmm.
Also known as Night Washer Woman or Little Washer of the Sorrow. Let's see, there's plural form, and what the plural form is Natham Nai, I think.
I think so.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. If I can't pronounce it, I apologize. But they are it's plural, and they are the spirits of those who died in childbirth, who have to continue their daily tasks until the day they were to originally die. Now, this part can be a little funny to those. I'm going to try to be mature about it, and I'm going to try to word it a little different. All right? But it is an interesting part, which is why I'm bringing it up. According to legend of the Isles of Mil and Tyre, she has long breasts that she throws over her shoulder as they interfere with her washing. Let me see here. Now, if you were to try to approach her quietly, and she's not aware, you must sneak up on her quietly and claim that you are her foster child by taking hold of one of her breasts and putting it in your mouth, as if you were a feeding baby.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to laugh and giggle at this. I did too when I first read it, because, let's face it, I have a
strange myth.
You know, I have a interesting sense of humor. Like I said, you know, before, I am not your typical minister. Okay? I am human. I am going to laugh at things that I think are funny. But
we all laughed at it.
You know, but at the same time, you know, it is what it is. It's part of it. But apparently, if you do this, she will tell you the knowledge of whatever you ask her about. But if you do not sneak up on her and she spots you, right? If she's aware of you're there, she will actually immobilize you. I don't know what happens after that, but apparently she will immobilize you.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like to me, from what this is telling me, it makes it to where it seems like she is, you know, nurturing you. So if you act like, if you can sneak up on her and you do this, although I don't know why anybody would, because honestly, I would find it a little creepy to do something like that.
I wonder why foster kid, of all things, why foster kid?
Because of the fact, when I read the part about the plural,
she died in childbirth.
in childbirth.
Oh, okay.
So you acting like a foster child to her, I think, actually relieves the sorrow temporarily.
Uh-huh.
Because she feels like she's nurturing you. Okay?
And the fact that if you manage to catch her off guard, she'll grant you 3 wishes.
Exactly. So, so
Genie.
these are some interesting things. I mean, I would have never thought something existed like this.
Neither
it
did
sounds
I.
bizarre,
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
does. And it does say that apparently if she is washing the clothing of you or your friends or family, you can actually stop it and avoid yours or their deaths, or allow her to continue if it's clothing of an enemy. So, I mean, these are just interesting tidbits of her. I mean, there's probably a couple other things. Like, there's the 3 wishes you were talking about. I mean, it does talk about her appearance a little bit. What's up? This?
Yep. So, one of the things they say is that if you see her first, then it goes back to that thing about how she'll answer your questions. She'll tell you about your fate and she'll answer any questions you ask truthfully, but in return, you have to answer anything that she asks of you truthfully.
That's true. I don't know what happens if you don't, but I imagine it's something not good.
Probably not.
Right. Yeah.
But apparently another interesting thing. Apparently there's a different way to catch her somehow. Because it says in Perthshire, she is small, round, and dressed in green, and can be caught by standing between her and the stream. So I guess if you get in her way before she can wash the clothes of people that are going to die, that's technically capturing her.
Right.
She can't fulfill what she's supposed to do.
She essentially has to have contact with water.
Pretty
considering
much.
she's a washerwoman.
I mean, now if you want to get into like physical things about her, she has defects apparently, like red webbed feet, 1 nostril, or a large protruding front tooth. But she also was established in Scotland, Ireland, but has also been seen in Wales, Western France, and Korea. So this one has different things going around, which I find interesting too, because, a lot of these things you would think originated one place, and then you learn that there's actually a different form of it other places.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just touching on some interesting things about this one. I'm not going to keep going into everything that's here. Like, I think that might be... I think that's most of what that we wanted to talk about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For now, so we'll take a break from that. But I mean, what do you think of stuff like that? Because I mean, they sound so bizarre, and then you wonder, could it be real, or did somebody make it up for some reason, or
I mean, it could be a mixture.
Maybe.
It could be a 50-50. A lot of times it is. A lot of times it's a 50-50 mixture. Real and not real.
That's one thing I've learned about a lot of things I've ever looked into is a lot of things are based on some fact, and then some of it's just embellished after that.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that one was one of the more bizarre ones.
Bizarre. Really, really bizarre.
Yeah.
I think if she was just limited to one area, it would be a lot easier to proclaim that just like an exaggeration of some kind of made up tale. But the fact
The
that
product
she was,
of an overactive imagination.
the fact that she was seen in so many different places, like other countries like France and Korea and all that, leads you to believe that even if it has been embellished, there was an original story it was based off of.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely.
Well, most legends and myths have some truth to them, you know?
Right? Yeah.
I'm not one to say it doesn't exist, but I'm also not one to say that it does. Know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But it makes you think, you know? Every
That's what
country has its own version of the boogeyman,
yeah.
you know?
A lot of versions. A lot of versions of a lot of stuff, actually.
There is.
Right.
There really is.
Maybe it is real when we just gotta find the main story that it originated from, and that's where it came, you know?
But I mean, it's just like I said with David and versus Goliath, right? I've
Mhm.
never seen any proof of a giant, but I mean, it doesn't mean something wasn't there,
Right, yeah.
you know? I mean, think about it. Dinosaurs existed,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Some people believe that Atlantis exists, they just have never found it. It could be something like that, where they lived at one point, but pretty much all records of them have been lost over time.
Well, it's just like with some dinosaurs. I'm sure some were lost to time that we'll never know existed,
Probably not.
you know?
Variation that sprung up maybe, a minuscule amount of years,
But I mean,
and not thousands.
who would have originally thought that giant creatures roamed this planet? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's one way to look at it is, it's incredible what this planet's
But
been
it's not
through.
just dinosaurs. There's a lot of species that their bones have been found that they don't exist anymore.
Exactly.
And a lot of people forget that way back when the dinosaurs and stuff roamed here, there weren't separate continents. It was one giant landmass.
That is true.
Split apart.
I mean, think about, a bunch of explorers, before they found America and stuff like that. Uh, there were stories of giant squids and stuff like that. The kraken and stuff that everybody thought was made up nowadays, and then you find out giant squids exist.
Yeah.
They still are alive.
The kraken could be a giant octopus that lives, back then. And now it's extinct. Yeah.
I mean, it really throws you through a loop.
And to think there's probably still a lot of things that are yet to be discovered.
Oh, yeah. About 95% of the ocean hasn't even been, thoroughly searched.
Explored.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? We can go into space and do all this, but what about the ocean?
Yeah, we still don't know everything about our own planet.
It's because there is no pressure in space. There's no gravity, whereas the ocean, the gravity and the pressure is so high that we just haven't invented anything that can hold up to it yet.
Right.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I hope so. But I'm interested to see, A, how deep does the deep go?
That's true.
And B, what's down there?
Yeah, it's hard to believe what they find.
Right.
But I guess we should probably take a look at our next thing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You okay?
Yeah, just a little tired.
Okay.
It's been a long day.
Let's see. Our next thing is...
Hag of the Dribble.
The Hag of the Dribble. Now, what's interesting about this one... Well, actually, what's interesting about all of them, they're all kind of related.
Yeah, in certain ways, yeah.
Well, you'll find out in a few minutes, actually, but... What's interesting about this is it kind of reminds you of a mixture of a Banshee and a vampire.
Yeah.
So this one's actually for the Welsh because it appears to families of pure Welsh blood to warn them of an approaching death. They are also known as the Hag of the Mist.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but her name is Grash E Ribbon.
Well, that's how it looks to us,
That's
but
how
actually,
it looks like it's pronounced.
but
But
actually, I know the first part of it's like, Gooker something? Gooker...
either way,
something? I don't know how to
the
say
name in Welsh translates to Hag of the Mist, which is more commonly translated into Hag of the Dribble.
And like a vampire, they feed apparently on blood to satisfy their hunger. And the description of them as apparently they look like a hideous monster with long hair, black eyes. Sometimes one eye is gray and the other black. You know, but has a crooked back, very thin figure, and apparently with her breasts are concealed by a scarf. And sometimes she's seen with long wings, apparently. And also, she wears black robes. With a green hood covering her head. But,
I wonder if there's color. I wonder if the colors have any significance,
I
like black and
honestly
green.
don't know, but of course the
I
descriptions...
don't know. I couldn't find anything on that.
But apparently, just like with everything else, other descriptions show her with webbed feet and hands, long saggy breasts, stringy gray hair, green or blue-gray skin, a long barbed tongue, sharp tusk-like teeth. I mean, no offense, but it sounds like somebody you wouldn't want to go near.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. No.
And what's different with this one is she'll warn people of upcoming death, but will also attack people to satisfy the need for blood.
So yeah. So she's a warner, but also she'll bite you.
Apparently, here.
Now, here's something interesting. I was watching a movie last night on Amazon Prime, and it's a movie I own. I just didn't feel like digging out the disc. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's called Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. It's got Jeremy Renner in it, the guy that played Hawkeye. And they go to fight these witches, and they meet a white witch, and they find out their mother was a white witch. But they're kind of confused because they look like perfectly normal humans. All the other witches are like deformed. They can't hide the fact that they practice, evil magic. Their skin is like a grayish, like off color. They like are deformed. A lot of them have different deformities. Basically, they just look. Basically, it's like the magic rotted them from the inside out. And some of them, if they're a grand witch, they could like put a glamour on themselves so they would look normal. But then if they lost their concentration, they would revert back. But a lot of them fit the description of this. Their whole thing, they were tired of being burnt at the stake. They were gonna take these children, and they found one born from every month of the year. So they took 12 children, 6 boys, 6 girls, 'cause balance. And they were gonna use their blood in a ritual to keep them from burning at the stake. Fire wouldn't touch them at that point. But it's really interesting because a lot of this stuff back then would have been they would have been considered witches, or it would have been witchcraft, with the occult and the supernatural. So while I don't think it's exact, it wouldn't surprise me if they took something like this legend and they used it as the basis for what their witches in the movie were gonna look like.
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, could be. definitely, for a time there, definitely like the Salem witch trials. Europe was really big into that too for a long time. They had the witch's hammer. It's kind of like a guidebook of how to find out if someone is a witch or not, and then the punishment.
You know
And
what
a
the
lot of the
interesting part of the witch trials, the Salem witch trials, that I find interesting is?
what?
Did you realize that everybody that admitted to being a witch survived, and everybody that said they weren't a witch died?
Huh.
I never thought of that.
Interesting.
Well,
No,
think
I didn't.
about it, because if you were accused of being a witch and you kept trying to claim your innocence, they would keep doing stuff to you to get you to confess.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
it got to the point to where it would kill you. But yet anybody who admitted to being a witch just got locked up.
Yeah.
That's the funny part about that I never knew before. Because I always thought, oh, if you admitted to being a witch, they burnt you at the stake.
No, they did that when they pretty much got tired of interrogating you about whether you were a witch.
You know, and then they did stuff where they would hang you.
They'd be like, you don't want to admit it and repent, you can burn in the fires of hell.
I know there was a guy that was, his wife had been, convicted of being a witch. And he was just tired of her, apparently. But then people started, saying he was one. And he refused to play their little game. So what they did is they put stones on him that got heavier and heavier over time. And instead of, admitting that he was a witch or anything to him, he just told him to put on more stones every time until the point where it killed him. And they believe that he now has a curse there in Salem.
Yeah, I mean, back then, if you didn't like somebody, you could just accuse them of being a witch, and...
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's basically how the Salem witch trial started.
But
it was like the ultimate betrayal.
But you see, what will happen is, this is why I'm glad that time travel doesn't exist, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go back and see this. What you don't realize, though, is if you go back the way we look, and you just suddenly appear, guess who's going to be accused of being a witch?
Even if you time it to appear somewhere and you dress for the time period and you study it all,
they didn't trust outsiders.
They were such closed communities
Mm-hmm.
that just the fact that you were
an
outsider would get you convicted of it.
They would get you convicted. Yes, they would.
Oh, you're infiltrating them, or you know, some such.
Yeah.
But
well, okay.
With the Hag of the Dribble, there are apparently some legends that say that she's joined by a big black dog called the Dog of Darkness. So that's another instance in which we could possibly be seeing the Grimm.
Right.
It's said that when she wants to warn people, she'll turn invisible and she'll follow them, and when they get to a crossroads, she'll call out, like, of who's going to die, whether it was, the wife, the husband, the child. Crossroads seem to be something who's really, it seems to be really big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, anybody who watches Supernatural knows that it's the crossroad demons that you make the deals with. You have to go to a crossroads and you have to bury something, and that summons the demon that you can make the deal with. But there's a lot of like dark arts, lore, whatever, that centers on crossroads. There's a lot of it. It's said that the Hag of the Dribble preys upon the weak, sick, and helpless to obtain blood. Takes small amounts at a time, but will continue to return to feed on that person until they waste away and die. Attacks only at night, especially on nights with a full moon. From feeding on the blood, it leaves their mouth covered in fresh blood, which drips onto her cloak, which is actually how the hag got the name Hag of the Dribble. The blood gives her power and strength, and she also gets supernatural powers, such as knowing who is actually like full Welsh and turning invisible. Some people say they can still hear her coming even though she's invisible. She also apparently has a connection to the moon. So not only does she get her supernatural strength from blood, but she also gets power from the moon. She's able to fly and pass through solid objects. Can only be driven off by a combination of physical force and faith, but there's nothing that states that she can be killed. So there's never been a record of one being killed. And the only thing that keeps her out, because she can pass through walls and things like that, is basically your faith. So back then a lot of people were Christian, I do believe it was. And so it wouldn't be that uncommon to see people like with crosses on their walls and all that kind of stuff. And if they believed in their faith enough and they had these symbols up, then I guess that would be a way of protecting their houses.
Funny thing is, I could see myself coming in contact with one of these, coming through the wall, and be standing there for days just going, shoo, go away, go away, go.
Another like weird part of this is knowing who is Welsh or not. So does this only affect Welsh people then?
Well, it makes me
Yeah,
wonder
pure
if
Welsh.
she can. Well, the
Pure
fact
Welsh.
that she feeds on blood makes me wonder if she can smell it. Like Welsh maybe have a different scent in their blood or something, a different type, so she can
Maybe.
tell.
And on like your conventional vampire, that'll pretty much drain you. She only takes a small amount at a time, but will continue to feed on the same people till they die.
Pretty much.
Well, it kind of makes sense, because if she's also getting power from the moon, you know, she probably doesn't actually need to feed all that much. Most of her power and senses probably come from the moon. It's really only her physical body's strength that she probably gets from the blood. She probably gets nutrients from the blood the same way normal people do eating food.
I'm starting to think that the blood might be more of like a payment in a way.
Could be.
Yeah,
You
kind
get
of
what I'm
sounds like
saying?
that. Yeah, it does sound like that.
That's what it seems like to me, at least. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't act like I'm an expert, you know.
It's your opinion on it.
Pretty much.
Now, what is interesting is that the last two that we spoke about, the Hag of the Dribble and the Faery Washing Woman, are both they're kind of like a subcategory of a banshee. They are both technically considered banshees. Just one is predominant mostly in Scotland, even though you do occasionally find them in like Korea and France.
Right.
The other one, like the Hag of the Dribble we just did, you only ever find her in Wales. So like the Great Britain area.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course there's the Banshee, which is the next one we're going to talk about. She is kind of like the mother of them all, of all these little subcategory demons. And she, you will only ever find in Ireland. She does not leave the country. She really only follows the Irish families. I mean, it's not just one. There's probably hundreds of them. But they don't leave Ireland's shores. They stay contained to the country, and they only deal with like the old Irish families for the most part.
But to call them demons, I think, is a little unfair, to be honest.
These supernatural beings.
Well, that's what I would call them, supernatural beings, because we don't know what they are. You know. Now, I know the Banshee I'm more familiar with due to the fact that I'm Irish.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Same here.
But there's a lot of things about the Banshee I didn't know. Like, apparently, I believe with the Banshee, there's actually a polar opposite, isn't there?
There is. One of the books that I found the information in the Banshee on is a book called Irish Fairy Tales. And, D.L. Ashleman. So,
That's who wrote it?
yep. So, the Banshee was apparently originally referred to as the weird wailing banshee that sings by night her mournful cry. And it was believed that by hearing her cry, it would give notice to the family she attends that one of its members was soon to be called to the spirit world. And, because of pronunciation with the different dialects of like Gaelic and Celtic and all that, the name of the Banshee was actually pronounced a couple of different ways. You had Banshee, Banshee, Banshee. They were translated by different scholars, but basically the translations could come down as the female fairy, the woman of peace, the lady of death, the angel of death, the white lady of sorrow, the nymph of the air, or the spirit of the air. And the banshee has a counterpart, and we're gonna look up some information on this counterpart for another episode. But the counterpart is called the Faery or the Shifra. And instead of a woman, this one is a man. And they call it the man of peace. And he would bring good tidings and sing a joyful song near the house of people when unexpected good fortune was to befall anybody in the house.
See, I didn't know this existed.
Yes.
So that's why it was really interesting to do a deep dive on this. You know?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I didn't know that there was something that was basically a counterpart to the banshee. I've known the banshee exists because I myself am, Irish to an extent, but I never really knew all these other facts about it.
And then also, apparently, with a banshee, what most people assume is that a banshee is really just a disembodied soul that who in life was strongly attached to the family or who had good reason to hate all of its members. So, that
Yeah, they say that there's two types of banshees. There's a friendly and there's an unfriendly. And the friendly one would have been somebody who was in good standing and close to the family. It could be that she herself was a member of the family, whether by blood or by marriage.
right.
It could have been that maybe she was a servant to a family that had some kind of title. And so her family, like, basically served the other one, and they were in, like, a really good standing with them. And this one, like, whenever people hear about banshees, they hear about how the banshee screams and is notifying them that somebody's gonna die. But with the friendlier version of the banshees, they don't scream. They basically they sing a song, and yeah, the song is still gonna be kind of like melancholy and sad, but it's a lighter tone that isn't as ear piercing. That's basically letting them know, hey, your time has come. But it's also apparently said to give them the impression that, don't worry about your loved one leaving you guys. It's just the fact of life. It's their time to go. All of your ancestors are waiting to welcome them to the spirit realm where they're going to reside with them forevermore or whatever. They didn't immediately cause fear. It was more of like it's time for them to leave this plane and go to the next one so that they can basically start their life anew after they've left their earthly body.
Right.
And the other one, on the other hand, is, I guess, like the evil version, and this would be the one who had reason to hate every member of the family. And so basically, like, if your family was blood feuding with another family, then of course, the family is going to hate every member of the other family. And so if they died and they decided to stick around and attach themselves to that family, then of course, when a member of that family was going to die, they would give like these really high pitched, like, horrendous shrieks to be like, haha, another one of your members is gonna die a horrible, gruesome death, or is gonna be taken out of this world, and we're gonna shorten the number of your family.
Sad part is, being Irish and all, if I were to probably even come in contact with a banshee and it did like a blood curdling scream or something, I'd probably just yell at it to shut up. No offense. I mean, it's just honest. You know.
You might be the next one to die then.
Yeah, but you see, I'm not afraid of dying. That's the thing that makes it interesting to me. Like I said before, you know, I actually kind of embrace death because I don't see it as the end.
Everybody's time is gonna come, and you know when it's your time to go, you're gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really change
Right.
that.
So I don't really fear a whole lot.
You can have near misses and close calls, but when it is actually your time to go, nothing will hold you to this plane of existence.
Pretty much.
They do say that the Song of the Banshee is commonly heard a day or two before the actual death. There are instances of it being cited, like that they've heard the song at the beginning of a course of conduct or line of undertaking that resulted fatally. Basically, that would be like some horrendous accident happened, you know, something you couldn't account for, and maybe right before the accident happened, you heard this banshee. So, I mean, maybe a train crashed, and right before it crashed, people on the train or nearby heard a banshee cry. There are also instances where the banshee gave off the cry at exactly the time that the person passed away.
In a way, this reminds me of something, Loki. Remember when you took me over to that park? Because you said, you know, that you heard a blood-curdling scream there before?
I was thinking the same thing the whole time you were talking about it.
Yeah.
Although, if it's to be believed, it couldn't be a banshee because they don't leave Ireland. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been something similar.
Doesn't mean a banshee couldn't be formed over here. Because a lot of Irish people came here.
True. Let's see. The banshee's cries are most frequently heard at night. There are cases of hearing a banshee during the daytime. Sometimes the song is inaudible to everybody except for the one whom they're warning, but there have been instances where everybody or other people visiting the family have actually heard the banshees. Let's see. Usually it's one banshee that people will see and or hear, but there are very rarely you'll hear several of them where they kind of get together and it's like a chorus of them. And it's said that the honor of being warned by more than one banshee was a great thing that only happened to the purest of the pure. So if you were like the only one I can really think of, and I don't think she was British, but Joan of Arc, if she was Irish, she would have been like a perfect example of somebody that would have probably heard more than one banshee.
I forget what Joan of Arc was. Was she?
I mean, she was like...
I can't remember French. What she is. I thought she was French, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, so. I believe she's French.
Ah.
But she was the first person I thought of where like a lot of people, not just her own country, but basically the entire world was like, you know, look at the good that this one person did fighting for what was right, and people that couldn't fight for themselves. And it's somebody like that that would have actually probably had a chorus of banshees warning them that their time was coming. They're not often seen, but they those that have made themselves visible differ as much in personal appearance as the cries that they have. Friendly banshees are usually seen as beautiful young female spirits. Usually they have, from what I understand, they usually have red hair, like blue or green eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And considering the fact that this is in Ireland, that would kind of make sense because
Yeah.
a lot of them have red hair.
Mm-hmm.
The hateful banshees were said to be horrible hags with angry, distorted features. And the banshee does not follow members of a family who go to a foreign land, but should death overtake them abroad, she gives notice of the misfortune to those at home. So if somebody decided that they were going to leave Ireland and they were going to come to America for a fresh start, land of opportunities and all that, I guess somehow the banshee is still connected to them. She can probably tell what's happening in their life even from all the way over here. And if they were to die while they were over here, the family still in Ireland might get a forewarning before they're notified by proper authorities that, their family member has passed on and will no longer be coming back to their homeland.
It is interesting to think that she doesn't travel anywhere else. She's kind of stuck in that country.
But yet people believe that there are banshees over here. So
Yeah.
And banshees are linked by centuries old legends to the great houses of Ireland, and these would have been like the families that had like lordships, basically, like dukes, lords, barons. Basically, if your family was real high up in the food chain and wealthy, chances are you had a banshee that was attached to the family. And
well, if there's a banshee attached to my family, it's probably pulling its hair out.
yeah.
You got a bald banshee.
Well, I'm a bald guy, so
By choice.
she's
Banshee.
just my type.
Now, what's really interesting is that in another book, in the Phantom Encounters book, there's 2 pages that deal with banshees, and basically they fall into the friendly banshee and the hateful banshee. The friendly banshee, they actually titled the page of that "A Red-Haired Revenant," and that one foretold of a story about a younger red-haired spirit. So that was obviously, like with the other one, they said the friendly ones were often seen as young female spirits with like vibrant hair colors and whatnot. So that was obviously a depiction of a friendly banshee. The other page that talks about the banshees, that one was titled "A Horrific Hag," and the really interesting thing about that one is that it says that undoubtedly the most repulsive of Great Britain's omen ghosts is the Grashiban ribbon, which is a phantom that belongs exclusively to Wales. And I mean, we already kind of knew that. Name literally means hag of the mist, but is more commonly translated as hag of the dribble. So that right there tells you that the hag of the dribble is considered a banshee. They classify that in the whole banshee category.
Actually, everything we've talked about has pretty much been linked to a banshee,
except for the Grim. But
yeah, except the Grim.
But even then, when we went over the
it hangs
hag of the
out
dribble,
though. It hangs out with the hag of the dribble sometimes,
that,
though. So
you saw them.
yeah.
But the horrible hag, she is said to appear as a hideous old woman who features masses of matted hair, a beak nose, penetrating eyes, and tusk-like teeth. Her long arms end in clawed fingers, and scaly black wings that are leathery like a bat's sprout from the middle of her crooked back. A lot of those features were used when we looked up the Hag of the Dribble.
Yes, it was.
So that right there, the fact that the descriptions match so well,
yeah,
tells you also that basically the Hag of the Dribble is in the Banshee family.
Pretty much. I mean, it's just amazing how a lot of things can be connected that you never knew existed.
It's like a subcategory when you really think about it. The Banshee is the parent.
Right.
and then it's like the others are basically offspring.
Yeah.
Mostly the same, but they differ in various ways.
But like I said, we were pretty much just going to touch on all this stuff. I mean, what do you guys think about all this? To be honest.
It's kind of interesting to know that a lot of them seem to be connected somehow.
Yeah.
The Hag of the Dribble is kind of like the Banshee, kind of like cousins of the Banshee, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Definitely related in a way.
The fact that the Hag of the Dribble is kind of like a ghost / vampire. They kind of mixed the two together and they got that. That's about it. I was gonna say something about the Grimm, but I can't really think of nothing.
Oh, I meant the Grimm is an interesting creature, I guess we'll
One
say.
of I know we have the topic for the next episode picked out, but I'm thinking the one after that, I think I want to include hellhounds in that one just so we can see
the comparison.
Maybe even do Cerebuses if we can find it.
Oh,
and
I'm
see
sure
how they compare to the Grimm and whether they're part of the same species.
To be fair, we might even want to take a look in the book of the Divine Comedy. I have it up there.
Yeah.
So.
What I found really interesting when we did the research for all this, I mean, when I thought of Banshee, I thought of what I knew about it. You know, she screams to warn families that somebody was gonna die. I didn't really know that there was basically a good and an evil version. You know, friendly and hateful. But it was really interesting to see when we looked up the Faery Washing Woman and the Hag of the Dribble, because the Faery Washing Woman, we didn't really find any information that said she was violent. She incapacitated them, like made them lose the use of their limbs, but nothing said it was permanent. Nothing said she actually did any kind of physical damage. So she is basically a non-violent, and she falls closer to the friendly Banshee. Whereas the Hag of the Dribble, being, you know, related to vampires in a way where it talks about how she causes the harm and kills them eventually through use of taking their blood and all that and all the deformities, you know, she's falls into the violent, hateful Banshee category.
Grandmom.
It's like the yin and the yang
what
of the Banshee was pulled apart and separated when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Hey, my grandparents were not the greatest people, okay?
Who would you compare them to more? The washerwoman or the Hag of the Dribble?
I don't know. All I know is they could be haggy, and could they scream like banshees.
Maybe they'll be reincarnated as banshees.
At least that's what my father's told me.
I don't know. If I had to say, I didn't meet the grandfather. I did meet your grandmother on your mother's side.
Well, I never got to meet my grandfather on my father's side, unfortunately. But I heard that he was actually okay. Grandma Murphy was kind of a piece of work. Not as bad as my mother's parents, though.
Your mother's parents sound really horrible, and I did get to meet the grandmother. She rarely had anything to do with your mother, but then at the viewing and the funeral made it basically all about woe is me, my daughter is gone. That's horrible.
Well, my pop was a real piece of work. That was my mother's father. His name was Ralph, but he also had a brother named Dick, who lived up to the name.
Poignant name.
Right?
So
we'll leave that at that.
If nobody else has anything on the topic of Grimms or Banshees that they want to add, then we can go ahead and start wrapping this up.
Yeah.
I know that the next episode we do is probably going to be on the White Lady, or the Lady in White as she's known. I found references to her in 3 of our books, but she's I'm gonna have to do some more research, but pretty much everywhere is known to have some kind of sighting or superstition or legend involving
And I'm sure we'll
the
probably
Lady
look
in
at
White.
versions of her as well that have appeared in like TV, pop culture, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, when they did,
You know.
a lot of people are fond of the show Supernatural. I know I am too. The actual first episode they did of that show involved the Lady in White.
Yeah, I thought so. All right. But I figured this format was a little different this time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it a little better too. I don't know what you two think about it.
We did. We did.
You like this better?
Yeah, I
Where it's a
do,
little, where it's a little
actually.
more off the cuff. We're not really following a complete structure, but we have notes so we can touch on things.
Right.
You know, and we can kind of talk about what we want to talk about along with what we wanted in the episode.
Right.
You know, so I might do more episodes like this because this seemed more easy going this time than the one that got messed up. So this, all right. Well, we'll try to stick with this for the next one too to see how it goes.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Sounds good to us.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, and everybody watching, if there's anything specific they would like to see us cover, anything they'd like to see us research and speak about, they can leave the comments below. They can also follow the links to the Facebook page, and they can send us a private message that way.
There's also the Twitters. There's two
Yep,
Twitters.
we have a Twitter account linked there. So I mean, we always welcome ideas. We always welcome comments and thoughts. Just please be mindful not to be hateful about it.
But you can either reach me directly on Twitter, or you can go to the Through the Doorway Twitter, where you can talk to both me and Loki. Okay.
We are
Right.
always
Yes,
looking
indeed.
for more people interested in this kind of thing. So, I mean, if anybody would like to potentially join the crew, that is something else that, you know, they can drop us a message about.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see about how we can work it out.
All right. So, Courtney, Loki, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I guess until next time, we will see you through the doorway.
Bye,
See you later,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.